Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting a like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now our first story comes from I Think My Wife Is Hot 1. Now this story happened back in 2019, had an update, but now it has one this year in 2026. So if you want to skip certain parts of the story, please feel free to do so because we're going to recap the original parts as well. It's from the relationship advice subreddit and says, my male 36 wife, female 43, thinks I couldn't be attracted to her, and the therapist agreed. So as mentioned, this first started back in November 30th, 2019, and it said background. Married a little over 2 years, after dating a very short time, around 3 months. We met at a work event and I was immediately smitten with my wife. It was like out of a movie. I saw her chatting with a group of people and in my head I heard, oh, there she is. She was newly divorced and took some convincing on my part, but we've been together from that night on and get along extremely well. Now, for clarity, I'm extremely attracted to my wife. We may just be in the honeymoon stage, but I've never felt this way about another woman. And because it pertains to the conversation we had today with a therapist, I would say the majority of the population would find her attractive, and not in a niche way. She's objectively attractive. I feel we are evenly matched in looks. Very few people have noticed the slight age difference. She, however, wins in personality, outgoing and charming, and she makes about 3 times as much money as I do. A couple of months ago, we ran into an ex of mine. And by ex, we literally dated for maybe a month and never exclusive. After my wife mentioned how different they were, age, hair color, body type, etc., and it ended in pretty heated argument. We have had 3 to 4 conversations since, all of which I was trying to convince my wife I'm not going to leave her for a woman I dated years ago. Last week, she asked if I would go to her therapist with her today, and I agreed. She's been seeing her for about 8 years for anxiety and a bout of depression that happened before we met. Today started normal enough and I'd figured why we were there, so I just jumped into it thinking the therapist would be on my side and would help me calm my wife's fears. That's not what happened. The therapist did very little talking, although their long silences and knowing glances started to piss me off right away. The thing that stood out to me the most was how my wife reiterated how she doesn't see how I would be attracted to her, and the therapist didn't even disagree. Like I felt like a crazy person. My wife is beautiful, charming, funny. It feels like I wished her into existence. She brought up the age difference, 7 years, my looks, and how quickly I wanted to get married as all reasons for why I am basically a gold digger. First off, we both wanted to get married quickly. I asked and figured she would want a long engagement, but she didn't, so we got married. Second, I never even discussed money with her until after we were married and never dreamed she made so much more than I do. She said she doesn't think I'm after her money, but enjoy the lifestyle while I'm with her, and it makes it easier to pretend I'm attracted to her. Sorry, more attracted to her, like I play it up. I'm completely blindsided and don't really want to talk to my family or friends. It's humiliating being accused of marrying someone for a lifestyle. For clarity, I moved into her house. I rent out my old home, but that income just covers the mortgage and the company manages it. All our money goes into a joint checking with automatic transfers into savings, etc. Our bills are paid from that account. I looked at our bank account and I spend significantly less than she does each month on average. After leaving, I'm in a complete panic that she is going to leave me, even though I feel humiliated and love her so much. I immediately wanted to offer to sign a prenup or separate bank accounts or both, but I just froze. My wife seems so sad and I'm so frustrated. I didn't even do anything wrong. The women I've dated in my past don't have a similar type, and to be honest, I didn't really date, more like hook up for a few months then moved on. I love my wife. She is the first woman I've ever met that I've had a real partnership with, like we're a team, and now that's all gone. I don't feel like I have the strength to leave her. It scares me that I can't even envision a scenario where I would leave. She's my most favorite person. How do I rebuild trust when I don't feel I ever did anything to lose it? OP also added some comments below this post, replying to other people, giving some additional information, etc. The first thing they said is, I don't know why, but you saying that therapists are humans made me feel a ton better. It's so weird to think of my wife as insecure. It's an odd feeling seeing someone you think so much of being so sure they are unattractive. Another thing they said is, I'm so scared she's going to leave, it feels paralyzing. Another one says, I left early. I think now I was having a panic attack and left and waited in the car, but I don't want to wait for the next shoe to drop. From what I can remember, there was no fixes suggested, but I should ask once I calm down and collect my thoughts. Another one says, how long has she not trusted my motives? I may have to see my own therapist because I'm not even close to being okay without her. I feel like I've been in a love bubble and I've been missing something. This is so out of nowhere. I rambled on like an idiot for the first 15 minutes about how my wife can't get upset every time we run into a person from my past and how much we love each other. Then immediately went silent when my wife was explaining why she thought I was not really in love with her. This in total was about 25 minutes before I just got up. Another one says, I feel totally unprepared as I have no experience with long-term relationships. I went into this blindly and will have to calm down and listen without panicking and go from there. I've never been so paralyzed with fear and it isn't helping anyone. Instead of feeling attacked, I need to really listen before I make any rash decisions. I guess I was annoyed at her not immediately agreeing with me, which really isn't her job. I was completely blindsided by my own expectations of how things were going to go, but when she didn't back me up, I felt immediate dread and panicked and left. My first reaction is always to run, and I don't want to do that with my wife, but that's what happened. That may be why my wife asked her to be there, because she didn't know what my reaction would be. When I wrote this, I was very emotional, and this post is absolutely one-sided. I have no experience and went in with the idea that we're going to solve my wife's jealousy in a few minutes and get on with our life. I didn't have realistic expectations and panicked immediately when things didn't go my way. I've never seen a therapist, so my understanding is limited. When I wrote this, I was mad and scared, and my first reaction is to run, but I don't want to leave my wife. I just woke up to all these comments about how normal and how badly I reacted. If I want this to work, I need to talk to my wife and really listen. She was very open about her issues with anxiety and depression and would like to believe she would tell me if she had another diagnosis, but I really don't know at this point. My wife isn't impulsive in general and is very calm and easygoing about 99% of the time. Her last marriage lasted 16 years and she suspected infidelity, but it was never definitive, and has a good/fair relationship with her ex as they have 2 children together, 1 adult, 1 teen. She has a few close friends, but her main close relationships are her sisters and mother. Her father died shortly after we met. Would someone with a personality disorder be able to keep close relationships? I googled immediately after reading your comment and it didn't seem to fit, but I could be in denial. It seems her therapist was in the wrong, and I don't think I'll be going back. However, she is a big part of my wife's life, so I don't plan on bad-mouthing her, just suggesting we see someone new. One more comment from OP that says, my wife in the past asked if I was fetishizing her because of how obsessed I was with her physically. At the time, I assumed it was because of her past issues with her ex-husband and not having been in a new relationship in a while. But that was before we were even married and not recently. I wonder if someone is feeding into her insecurities. I don't really care if she makes more or less money than me. I lived a comfortable life before and nothing really has changed except for a slightly bigger house in a much better neighborhood. Not to sound like I was well off, but middle class with no kids or debt is fairly carefree. A day later, OP edits the post and says, my wife didn't come home last night, but I texted her this morning, first apologizing for leaving the session and then asking her to come home so we could formulate a plan. No word back yet, but I doubt she will check her phone before lunch if she went to work. Thanks for letting me vent. I've already asked my insurance company to send a list of counselors for me to call later today. Hopefully I'll find a good fit as I don't even know how to go about picking one. Edit 2. I need a referral from my general doctor before insurance will cover a therapist or psychologist. I have an emergency phone appointment Monday and will be seeing someone by myself. My wife didn't return my text but did come home about an hour later. Honestly, I cried for the first time in a long time, but was able to get across how seriously I take her concerns. I haven't mentioned anything about a therapist or my feelings about things, just apologized and asked for another chance to hear her out completely. She said she was really drained and is taking a nap. I don't think she made it into work and I'm actually looking forward to having the weekend to talk. I'm not going to ask for couples counseling until I talk to my own therapist. This is probably unless I fuck things up this weekend. Thanks for letting me type out my feelings and being honest, even the hard comments were helpful. So it was 9 days later, December 8th, 2019, that OP came in with their first update and says, despite my hyperbole title, I received a lot of feedback on my last post and thought I would thank everyone again and do an update. Talk with wife. During last weekend, I was made aware of a lot of things I was doing to compound my wife's fear of being abandoned and used. The major thing that stuck out to me was my immaturity and unwillingness to discuss anything serious. When my wife would bring up her ex-husband, finances in particular, I would A, make a joke, or B, try to end the conversation as soon as possible. I'm not sure why, it just made me uncomfortable and didn't see the value of discussing things that weren't a major problem to me. I was happier my needs were being met, so I assumed hers were too. It was my most damaging mistake. Another misunderstanding happened with my ex. In my mind, it was a quick 5-minute conversation. To my wife, it was much more. So about 6 months ago, I injured my knee running. I'd been up to that point a pretty serious low mileage runner, 5 to 10 miles 3 times a week. After the injury, my doctor suggested I try weightlifting as I was worried about physical therapy not being enough. Well, I hired a personal trainer and I've been a gym rat ever since. It's become a serious hobby that I apparently obsessively talk about. I've invited my wife, who occasionally does yoga, several times and even talked about getting her a membership for Christmas, even though she showed no interest. So when we ran into my ex and I noticed she looked significantly different, she put on about 10 pounds of muscle. I complimented her and we talked about weightlifting for a few minutes while my wife stood to the side. My ex told me to add her on Instagram, which while I did look her up to add her, her page was mostly advertising supplements, so I didn't end up doing it. My wife took this chance run-in as proof that I was unhappy with the way she looked and was trying to get her to change. Add in some harsh comments from one of our co-workers about our relationship, her sister pushing for a prenup, and my lack of communication. Everything came to a head these last few months. My therapist. The most helpful advice was to get my own personal therapist. I kind of just picked one from a list my provider emailed me, but it seems to be going well. A lot of things were discussed, but my major takeaway was that it isn't my job to calm my wife's fears completely. Listening and being reassuring is healthy, but trying to make everything better won't help either of us. My therapist said, even if I tried, my wife's own voice in her head runs 24/7, and I could never keep up. This was hard to hear as I have definitely made some major mistakes, but besides acknowledging them and doing better, everything else is out of my control. She recommended a book called The Happiness Trap that I haven't ordered yet, but said it would help me understand what it's like to have anxiety and may explain, not excuse, some of my wife's behavior. My therapist also said I should look into my wife's therapist as she sounds unlicensed, and if I felt comfortable, she could put in the complaint on my behalf. I'll probably do this, but I'm letting things settle. So after probably the worst 2 days of my life, things seem to be better. I haven't brought up a prenup because she seemed offended when my wife told me her sister brought one up as a solution. I did offer separate bank accounts, but she said no and only requested that we update her will and create one for me, as I didn't even have one. I thought it'd be weird, but we both put each other on as beneficiaries along with her 2 children if we both died. We only filled out the paperwork and did have to turn it into a lawyer, but it's made a difference, but I'm not sure why. I did delete my Facebook. I haven't used it for years, but when I went on it, it was very single me. Lots of old girlfriends, holidays, etc. And I never updated that I was married. I had a notification from my wife when she tried years ago, but it just sat there. My wife is still fairly active on Facebook and I could see how that would feel awful, even though she never mentioned it. My last update was a picture of a woman and I that I randomly met in Hawaii during a vacation. I titled it 2 Blondes with Hearts. Like my whole page was embarrassing. I can't imagine what her family or friends thought when they found me. I was completely public and kind of a dick on there. I still feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but honestly there is no other person I would ever want to try this hard for. And if I'm becoming a better person for trying, it will be worth it no matter the outcome. Things are still really shaky and she leaves immediately after Christmas for work. This whole episode has kicked on my anxiety, but I'm hopeful. So again, we had some comments from OP before the next update. It said, I agree about her needing to deal with her anxiety. I think my blame is rushing into a marriage and then refusing to deal with issues as they arose. It's hard, but I'm finally to the point where I'm going to fight for our marriage, but in the end be willing to walk away if she isn't willing to seek a different therapist. And to be fair, it was more of a, wow, you put on a ton of work, but that's not how it came out. I'm guessing that's regarding to the conversation with the ex. Then someone accuses OP of spending his wife's money, and OP says, I make around 110k a year and spend 50 a month on a gym membership, $450 for 8 weeks of personal training, and 20 copay for a therapist, but okay. OP then also says, I picked a random therapist from a list my provider gave me. One therapist. I've gone to one personal therapist. A therapist crossed the line agreeing to do couples therapy. My therapist suggested I do a bit of research to see if she is licensed. I had a phone call with a general doctor, covered by my insurance, to get a referral. I'm starting to think you don't understand how HMOs work. I'm an office manager. I'm home by 6 p.m. every night. I have no kids or major debt, so I vacation about twice a year. This was since before I was married. My wife oversees the sales team at the same company. Her salary plus commissions dwarfs my salary, but so does her spending. She also spends about 1.5 times the amount of time at work or traveling for work. Something I would trade for less money, but isn't an option. Things equal out pretty evenly as far as spending/earning. I'm not sure who is still using Facebook at this point. My wife uses it to stay in touch with family and old friends. I stopped using it once I got married. Thanks for thinking I'm good looking, I guess. I feel like I've explained why I was a dick, and then now you're just repeating them back to me. Like I'm the reason you know this. I typed all that out. Opie continues, I'm trying because even though we rushed into this marriage, I really do think we're a good match. Being honest with myself was scary, but I was amazed of how much of a difference I felt after one session with a therapist. And said my immaturity and lack of communication was contributing to a problem I didn't even know was there. Her insecurities aren't my problem, but if I love her and want to make this work, I can work on myself and be more forgiving when she needs extra support. Then, at the time, I didn't think my £110 wife would take offense, and to be fair, she buys everything she wants. It doesn't give me a ton of options. I was thinking more of something we could do together, but that's definitely not how it came across. And I want to be married to my wife for the rest of my life. But if I could do it over, I would have waited at least 2 years. 2 weeks later after that post, Opie added a comment saying things are going good. Been using this throwaway to browse relationship subreddits. Not sure if it's helping, but feeling really grateful my problems seem fixable. Try my best, so if our marriage fails, I won't have any regrets. So this is where Opie comes in, July 31st, 2026, almost 7 years later, and says, I received a chat request this morning asking for an update. Here is how I remember things starting from where I left off. I immediately got into individual therapy, and we both joined couples therapy. I went individually for a few years, and we attended couples therapy for approximately 6 months. We both really liked our therapist, but we eventually ran out of things to discuss. The biggest takeaway from therapy was realizing what an absolute joke I had been. I was walking around with my brain literally turned off. I didn't take anything seriously, which made my wife think I couldn't be trusted. I thought everything would always work out, not even realizing she was the reason it did. Looking back, it's so embarrassing. All I had to do was start participating in our life. I'm incredibly grateful for the therapist who held me accountable and kindly told me to grow up. I wanted my wife to trust and lean on me, but I had shown no proof that I was actually capable. The issue with my wife's therapist resolved itself. I wanted to report her, but we were so fragile at the time that I thought it would look malicious. My wife started seeing her less and less and then just never went back. I do think seeing how professional and competent our marriage therapist was, in contrast, helped that decision. I sold my old house because I was getting the feeling my wife thought it was my backup plan. I actually hated that house. I just didn't want to fail with my first home ownership. It was basically operating at a loss after taxes, repairs, and the rental company's share. My wife still works for the same company but as a consultant. She had a minor health scare and needed a more flexible schedule. My brother started the company, and I eventually quit my job to join him in building the business. This has helped our relationship so much. Co-workers knowing our backstory didn't help with the gossiping and overall weird vibes. We never got a post-nuptial agreement, but we did write wills, which have been amended over the years. As it stands, we are each other's primary beneficiaries, and after that, everything gets split between the stepkids and a niece of ours whom we are both close with. Money hasn't been much of an issue since therapy. We are both big savers. Trust repaired a lot of issues. Advice: don't get married too quickly. Do discuss finances before getting married. Being married is harder than being single. The trade-off is having someone to commiserate with and to be truly known by. If your life got easier or stayed the same after marriage, check in with your partner. Opie adds, I actually don't think she would have even considered dating me if she hadn't come off of a bad divorce. I'm so grateful things worked out, but I definitely got lucky. And when we were first married, my life got infinitely easier. That should have been my first sign I wasn't contributing enough to our day-to-day life. And for me, the biggest difference in like the first post in the 7 years that happened was OP's self-awareness. At the start, he was looking at himself as someone who had done nothing wrong and thought his wife's insecurities were the entire problem. But by the end, he could acknowledge that while her anxiety wasn't his fault, he'd been emotionally checked out in ways that he hadn't even realized. He admitted that he avoided like the difficult conversations and assumed everything was fine because he was happy and expected things to just work themselves out. And I'm just really glad that things did work out in the end, and someone got in contact with him 7 years later to bring this update up. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Our next story comes from a throwaway account who says, I, 25 male, found an expensive laptop among my fiance's 23 female things. Have no idea why something like that would be at our house. When I confronted her about it, the laptop was gone, and she claims she has no idea what I'm talking about. This afternoon, I, 25 male, was looking for something to wear to my sister's graduation tomorrow. My fiance, 23 female, have lived together for 2 years in a pretty small apartment while we save for a house. Our stuff is all pretty mixed together, so when I couldn't find something in my closet, I looked through hers. I found the shirt I was looking for. When I pulled it out, I found a laptop that was kind of tucked away. As far as I knew, my fiance didn't have a laptop. She has an iPad and a Kindle and an iPhone. I don't know much about computers, but I know this particular computer sells for thousands and thousands of dollars online. This computer didn't look old and used, it looked almost new. I have no idea when in the past she would have had the money to buy something like this, or why she would have without telling me about it. Not that she has to or anything, I just don't understand why she wouldn't. I put the laptop to the side to ask her about it when she got home and went for a run. By the time I came back, she was home. The laptop wasn't where I left it. Bedside table. When I asked my fiance about it, she said she had no idea what I was talking about, and she didn't have a laptop. I've never purchased one. I know I'm not imagining this, because other things I'd misplaced looking around were still out of place. No one else had access to our house. I'm either crazy or my fiance isn't being honest with me. I feel so confused. Any advice on how to deal with this would be great. So people were speculating in the comments. The first one said, is it a surprise gift? Opie says, I guess, but there's nothing that came up that would warrant such an expensive gift. Even with birthday gifts, we only spend like $100 on each other. Like I said, we're trying to save up for a house. Someone said, was it in the box? Opie says it was not in the box. Someone suggested it's her boyfriend's laptop. Opie says we have a Ring doorbell. There isn't any video of anyone strange coming in or out. Someone suggests maybe it's a gift from a sugar daddy, or that maybe she's a cam girl. Opie says, in regards to the gift from a sugar daddy, if my fiance was to have a sugar daddy, I don't know why she'd get him to buy her a laptop instead of things she actually saves her money for. Shoes, clothes, etc. are the only things I've ever seen her excited to buy, not electronics. I thought about the cam girl thing, but my fiance is extremely shy and extremely introverted. She doesn't even like talking to cashiers at the store. So obviously all the comments were just speculation, everyone going down different paths, but Opie came in a week later and said, hey everyone, my first post is here, shares the link, and then says, thanks for all the input. Most people were pretty convinced my fiance was either having an affair or had an online page. Luckily, none of those things were the case. To make a long story short, my fiance's younger brother still lives with his parents and used his stimulus checks to buy the laptop, when he still owed his parents money after they helped him paying some of his bills for a few months. I guess his mum started to get suspicious that he'd blown his money, so she was going through his stuff to try and find out what he'd spent it on. The last time he was at our place, he hid the laptop in my fiance's closet. I guess he thought he'd be back soon to get it. When I found the laptop, I texted one of my friends about it, who's also friends with said brother. This friend went to her brother and was like, holy shit, your sister's definitely doing porn. So that's how he found out I'd found the laptop. He came into our house and got the laptop and then deleted the doorbell footage. I didn't even know he had access to our doorbell, but I guess a few months ago when we went on vacation, my fiance gave him our info to keep an eye on the house since we went out of service. Anyway, that's it. I know a lot of you might be disappointed she wasn't cheating or doing anything bad. I got a lot of messages calling her pretty disparaging names, but it was just her idiot brother. And guys, apparently because my fiance wasn't cheating on me, this is sketchy. She's not cheating. She didn't do anything bad. Stop sending me messages telling me I'm oblivious, dumb, she's lying, he's lying. I trust my fiance. She has no reason to buy this laptop. It was confirmed her brother bought it. And I've said it before, but I guess some of you need repeating. This story was confirmed by multiple sources. Neighbor's camera caught a flash of him walking past their door to get to ours, but no footage of coming to ours because he deleted the footage. I saw the bill in his name for the computer. When we turned the computer on, it had all of his shit on it. Adding, I changed the Ring password. I'm not sure where I thought this was going to go because there was all sorts of speculations, the OnlyFans, the hidden gambling, the affair, some kind of second job, all sorts going on in those comments, but I wasn't expecting the brother. So I'm going to turn this one straight to you guys. What was you expecting after that first part of the story? Where was you expecting the story to go for you? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here. Truly is absolutely amazing. And hopefully I'm going to see you in the next one. Take care and much love.